It begins in the same pattern every time. She gazes at you not seeing your reality, but envisioning the potential she believes you possess. You sense it in her stare, don't you? That spark of anticipation. Or perhaps it's appetite. You believe you're being recognized, but you're mistaken. You're being evaluated, judged, examined like an empty vessel, prepared for her to create her vision. Yet the vision isn't truly you. It never has been. Carl Jung cautioned you about this, not through gentle encouragement of self-help gurus. Rather, with the cold, analytical clarity of someone who dedicated his existence to exploring the psychological depths of human nature. Jung's entire career focused on understanding what he termed the collective unconscious, that aspect of the human psyche that functions silently below conscious awareness. And he uncovered something disturbing about feminine psychology. But before we continue, make sure to like the video, share it with people who might appreciate it, and write in the comments which city you're following our YouTube channel from. He realized that women don't simply develop feelings for men. They develop feelings for concepts of men, for the illusion, for the mental image. And the most frightening aspect is that most remain unaware they're engaging in this behavior. You may believe she's selecting you, but what she's truly selecting is the interpretation of you she's constructed within her psyche, a psychological marionette designed to fulfill a function in her internal narrative. And when you cease conforming to the storyline, she replaces the performer, not the plot. Jung identified this phenomenon as projection through the animus, the internal masculine archetype that exists within every woman's psyche. And when that animus remains immature, underdeveloped, or unchecked, it transforms into a despot. It becomes the hidden influence that drives women toward perilous men while dismissing worthy ones, causing them to argue irrationally, control without understanding, and judge without taking responsibility. Jung refused to minimize this reality. He characterized it as spiritual possession, a condition where the woman becomes unconscious that she's no longer operating from her authentic awareness, but from the dark influence of her internal masculine projection. And men, you succumb to this because no one prepared you to recognize it. You confuse being wanted with being understood. You mistake being selected with being known. You accept her statements when she claims you're unique, when actually you're simply the newest person she's chosen to fulfill a character she's been practicing since childhood. And when the illusion crumbles, when the facade falls away, you're left bewildered, deceived, and embarrassed, questioning what you did incorrectly. But you did nothing wrong. You simply stopped being a believable performer in another person's drama. Jung warned that the only escape from this psychological performance is through what he called individuation, the continuous process of becoming complete within yourself. And here's the difficult reality. Most men never begin that journey. You've been conditioned to pursue acceptance, to seek approval, to allow women to determine your value. And as long as you continue, you'll keep performing the same character repeatedly, getting dismissed every time the spectators grow tired. Individuation isn't appealing. It's harsh. It requires you to face the aspects of yourself you've hidden, the vulnerable, the uncertain, the damaged. It demands that you stop criticizing women for not recognizing you and start recognizing yourself. Because here's what Jung understood that most men will never grasp. You don't become a man through being selected. You become a man by selecting yourself. You don't establish your value through her love. You establish it by standing independently, fully conscious, fully accountable, fully present. A man who has confronted his own unconscious cannot be manipulated by projection. He is no longer a marionette in someone else's illusion. He is the creator of his own existence. Jung observed that the greatest tragedy of contemporary men is not that they face rejection but that they are prepared to reshape themselves into whatever form they believe will be accepted. You label it compromise. You label it partnership. You label it love. But Jung had a different term for it: self-abandonment. He warned that men who neglect their own psychological development become servants to feminine projection, molding themselves like malleable material into the shapes demanded by women who don't even understand their own authentic desires. You cease being men and become facades, grinning, agreeing, complying, acting until you lose memory of who you were before donning the mask. And women, they detect this. Oh, they perceive it more than you could ever imagine. The very behavior you think will make her love you, compliance, predictability, accessibility, becomes the exact reason she loses interest. Why? Because the feminine instinct, Jung explained, isn't attracted to security. It's attracted to enigma, to danger, to the man she cannot fully comprehend or dominate. The instant you make yourself completely transparent, without limits, without strength, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible, expendable, interchangeable. And yet, here's the contradiction that keeps most men trapped. You fear solitude more than you fear being inauthentic. You'd rather sacrifice yourself than lose her. You'd rather exist in a role than confront the horror of standing without recognition. But Jung taught that until a man accepts that isolation, he will never be liberated. He wrote that individuation is a journey not for the weak because it requires you to experience death before dying, to allow the false versions of yourself to be destroyed so that something authentic can finally emerge. But let me share something that nobody wants to acknowledge openly. Individuation is isolating. Frighteningly isolating, because as you walk that journey, you begin to perceive things you cannot ignore. You begin to identify the games people engage in, the masks they display, the deceptions they tell themselves just to feel secure. And when you attempt to share what you observe, they ridicule you. They label you distant, superior, too analytical. They blame you for being the problem. But you're not the problem. You're the reflection. And people despise the reflection when it reveals something they don't want to confront. Jung understood this intimately. He spent decades studying patients who were terrified to face their own shadow, the dark, rejected aspects of their personality they refused to acknowledge. And women, Jung warned, are often raised in societies that reward them for avoiding that confrontation. They are told they are innocent, feeling, instinctive, and perfect just as they exist. But Jung didn't accept it. He wrote that the greatest threat to women was their unconscious animus, the voice within them that speaks with false confidence, false power, and false moral righteousness. He warned that if a woman does not confront and integrate this inner masculine energy, she becomes its prisoner, projecting it onto every man she encounters, blaming them for the very battle she refuses to fight within herself. And here you are believing you're her rescuer, believing you'll be the exception, believing that if you just love her intensely enough, prove yourself loudly enough, perform excellently enough, she'll finally choose you for who you are. But that's not how projection functions. Jung taught that projection is a thief. It steals reality and substitutes it with fantasy. And until both men and women awaken from that fantasy, they are condemned to repeat the same tragedy repeatedly. Each one blaming the other, never realizing they're both dancing with illusions. And here lies the most ironic twist of all. The woman who once viewed you as her champion will one day view you as her adversary, not because you transformed, but because you failed to fulfill the fantasy she projected onto you. And she won't even realize she's doing it. Jung called this psychological betrayal inevitable when neither party takes responsibility for their own internal world. You didn't deceive her. You didn't betray her. You simply disappointed the invisible character she invented in her unconscious mind. You were never him to begin with, and that's why she resents you, not for your shortcomings, but for failing to live up to the myth she never told you you were hired to portray. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how ridiculous, to avoid confronting their own souls." And nowhere is this more accurate than in romantic relationships. Both men and women enter them not as complete individuals, but as walking projections, carrying their unlived fears, unmet needs, and unresolved childhood trauma into the embrace of another person they barely know. You call it love. Jung called it possession. And like a man under hypnosis, you keep walking into the snare, thinking this time it will be different. But it never is, because you have not yet asked the most terrifying question a man can ask himself. What if I am the one responsible for this pattern? You want to blame women. You want to call them calculating, dishonest, superficial. But Jung would look you in the eye and ask, and why did you allow yourself to be chosen by that woman in the first place? You see, the man who refuses to confront his own feminine inner world is destined to be enslaved by hers. You are not a victim. You are a participant. You chose to play the fool. You chose to be the actor in her private mythology. Because facing your own void, Your own lack of completeness was far more terrifying than playing a part in someone else's fantasy. And here's where most of you will stop listening, because this is where the comfort ends and the responsibility begins. Jung didn't offer easy solutions. He didn't give you 3 steps to alpha male greatness. He gave you the brutal lifelong task of self-confrontation, of sitting alone in the silence of your own mind until the illusions start to fracture, until the voice in your head that says you're nothing without her begins to perish. And make no mistake, that voice will fight for survival. It will tell you that you need her, that you are incomplete without her, that no man can exist without feminine validation. But Jung's work whispers something more dangerous. It whispers that the man who can stand without her, without approval, without applause, without being needed, is the man who is finally free. Free from projection, free from performance, free from the tyranny of existing as someone else's idea of a man. And when you reach that place, you don't become cold or distant. You become authentic. You become rooted, grounded, fully alive in your own skin. And that is when, paradoxically, women will feel the most drawn to you. Not because you need them, but because you don't. And you'll smile not because you're heartless, but because you finally understand. You understand that she is on her own journey, too. That she must face her own animus. That she must wake from her own illusions. And you can't do that work for her. You can't save her from herself. You can only do what Jung did. You can walk your own path so fearlessly that you become a living mirror reflecting the truth back to everyone who dares to look. Most will turn away, but a rare few, will thank you for it. And that, my friend, is the difference between being loved for the role you play and being respected for the man you've become. And when that moment comes, when you finally realize you don't need to perform anymore, you'll start to notice something strange. You'll notice how uncomfortable people become around you. They'll sense it even if they can't name it. The weight of your presence will unsettle them because you no longer fit into the predictable categories they use to feel safe. Jung warned that the individuated man is not welcomed by society. He is feared, misunderstood, labeled as distant or arrogant. But the truth is far more threatening. You have simply become untouchable, unbribable, unmanipulable because you see through the game. And here's where it gets interesting. The very people who once begged for your attention, your validation, your approval, they'll begin to resent you for not needing theirs. Women, especially those still possessed by the fantasy of the perfect man, will accuse you of being emotionally unavailable. They'll say you're too much in your head, too analytical, too distant. But what they really mean is that they can no longer control you. You've stepped off the stage. You've stopped reading from their script. And without that script, they don't know what to do with you because you've stopped being a character and started being a man. Jung once joked that the gods have become diseases, that what ancient cultures used to call divine possession, modern psychology calls neurosis. And make no mistake, men chasing validation are the most spiritually sick of all. You think you're being romantic when you say things like, "I'd do anything for her," or "She's my everything." But Jung would shake his head and tell you that what you call love is actually a refusal to carry your own soul. It's easier to project it onto a woman and make her the carrier of your hope, your meaning, your purpose. Because if she carries it, you don't have to. But here's the brutal twist. When she realizes she was never designed to carry your soul, she will drop it. She must drop it because no woman, no matter how loving, can hold the weight of a man who refuses to hold himself. And when she drops it, you'll feel betrayed. But you shouldn't. You should thank her because in that moment when the illusion collapses, you finally stand face to face with the truth that the work of becoming a man was never hers to do. It was always yours. And in that raw moment of clarity, you have 2 choices. You can blame her. You can become bitter. You can join the angry chorus of men who point their fingers at women, mocking them, resenting them, swearing them off like cowards who never dared to face their own emptiness. Or you can do what Jung would have demanded of you. You can turn inward. You can start the lonely, terrifying, liberating work of individuating, of becoming whole without needing someone else to complete you. Because the truth is, the woman you're searching for out there, she's a reflection of the part of yourself you've abandoned. Until you face that part, every relationship will be a performance. Every connection a transaction. Every love a lie. But when you do face it, when you integrate your own inner feminine, you become a man who no longer needs to chase women. You don't run after them. You don't manipulate them. You don't perform for them. You stand still, fully rooted in who you are. And from that place, something miraculous happens. You no longer attract women who want a character. You attract women who want the truth. And you'll know it when it happens because she won't demand that you perform. She won't try to change your script. She won't fall in love with the fantasy of you. She'll stand before you, raw and real, not as a goddess looking for worship, but as a human being willing to walk her own path beside you. No masks, no projections, no games. And when you meet her, the real her, not the fantasy, you'll see the difference instantly. She won't flood you with grand declarations. She won't treat you like the missing piece of her puzzle. She won't seduce you with the language of completion because she isn't looking to be completed. She isn't looking to be saved. She's done the work. She's met her own shadow. She's confronted her own animus. She's burned through her own illusions. And that's why she won't need you to perform. She won't need you to carry her soul. She'll stand there whole in herself, looking you in the eye, not as a man she wants to mold, but as a man she is finally ready to meet. And in that meeting, there is no desperation. There is no clinging. There is no performance. There is only truth. And that truth, Jung taught, is the rarest and most dangerous kind of love. The kind that demands nothing but offers everything. Because it is not born of need. It is born of freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to walk away, freedom to stand together without illusions, without masks, without fear. But let me warn you, most of you will never experience this because most of you will quit before you get there. You'll settle for the performance. You'll settle for the fantasy. You'll settle for the temporary thrill of being seen as someone you are not because facing who you truly are still feels unbearable. But if you have the courage, the brutal, gut-wrenching courage to keep walking, to keep standing alone, to keep stripping away every false layer you've built to earn approval, you will eventually find yourself standing at the edge of something terrifyingly beautiful. You will find yourself, and when you do, women will no longer be the source of your identity. They will no longer be the mirror you use to feel like a man. They will become something else entirely. Partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not mothers. Allies, not saviors. And you will love them not because you need them, but because you choose to. From a place of strength, from a place of wholeness. From a place that knows without apology who you are. Carl Jung didn't leave you a map to follow. He left you a warning. A warning that every man who refuses to confront himself will become a slave to the projections of others, especially the projections of women. But he also left you a challenge. A challenge to walk the path of individuation. To stop blaming women for the roles you volunteer to play. To stop seeking wholeness in someone else's eyes. To stop waiting to be chosen. Because the man who chooses himself fully, unapologetically, relentlessly is the man who cannot be controlled by fantasy. He cannot be seduced by performance. He cannot be reduced to a character in someone else's script. He becomes the author of his own life. And if you've made it this far, if you felt this message hit somewhere deep inside you, don't just scroll away. Don't let this be another thing you consume and forget. Take a moment right now to like this video. Share it with another man who needs to hear the truth. And subscribe for more. Your support isn't just for us. It's for the next man who's still living in the illusion, waiting to be set free. Help us spread this message. Help us wake up the world, one man at a time.